Some time ago, in a small village on the edge of the forest, a young woman named Cinderella performs her household chores while singing about how much she wanted to attend the king's grand ball. The problem is that she cannot afford to attend such an event, and suddenly, she is surprised by the rest of her family. After losing her mother, Cinderella was forced to live with none other than her stepmother, who teased and humiliated her along with her 2 daughters. Far away, a boy named John takes care of his cow friend. Realizing that the animal is cold, he tries to take it inside the house, where he is scolded by his mother, who is tired of living such a difficult life with her son. In the center of the village, a couple of bakers, who dream of one day having a complete family, are surprised by a girl in a red hood, who asks for some food for herself and her grandmother. Although reluctant, the adults give part of their stock to the young girl, who sets off excitedly toward the forest before nightfall. Soon after, the couple is surprised by a macabre witch, who reveals that she is responsible for them never being able to have children. The villain explains that in the past, the baker's parents decided to steal some vegetables from her garden, and when she caught the man red-handed in the garden, she decided to punish them. Therefore, the woman ordered the couple to hand over their baby, and soon after, she cast a curse on her neighbor's house. Upon discovering that he had a little sister, the baker becomes concerned and asks where his youngest child is. However, the witch refuses to reveal this and states that this will be the price the family will pay for everything they have done, since during the theft, the patriarch ended up taking some of her magic beans. Those magical items were what kept the witch's rejuvenation spell alive, and as soon as she lost them, she ended up looking completely aged. Soon after, the witch assures the couple that they will never be able to have a baby, and if they want to undo this spell, they must help her collect the ingredients for a special potion. The witch says she will need 4 items: a white cow, a red hood, a lock of golden hair, and a golden shoe. Meanwhile, Jack receives another lecture from his mother, saying that the cow is no longer giving milk, so he must go to town to sell it. Although reluctant, the boy knows he has no choice and leaves with his pet. Far away, Cinderella has just finished cleaning her stepmother's mansion and runs to ask her permission to attend the party, but the woman refuses, ordering her to continue with her work. Determined to sneak into the king's grand festival, the cleaning lady heads to her mother's grave so she can talk to her. At the same time, the baker begins his journey in search of ingredients, while Little Red Riding Hood returns to her grandmother's house. In the middle of the forest, Cinderella arrives at the tree where her mother is buried and tells her that she wants to attend the event. Wanting to help her daughter, the spirit conjures up a wave of golden leaves, which change the woman's appearance, and she is delighted with her new look. In that same region, Little Red Riding Hood is surprised by the big bad wolf, who asks her where she is going. The young girl replies that she is taking some bread to her grandmother and continues on her way, while being pursued and tormented by the man, who tries to steal her basket. Tired of this, the girl takes her basket back and says goodbye to him, but the big bad wolf does not give up on his goal and retreats to come up with a new plan. Minutes later, the baker comes across Little Red Riding Hood picking flowers in the forest, when he is surprised by the witch, who urges him to pick the items quickly. Realizing that the woman will not stop tormenting him, the man approaches the girl and tries to steal her hood. In a rage, Little Red Riding Hood tries to resist, and when she sees her most precious item being taken away by the baker, she lets out a deafening scream. Thanks to this, the man gives up on stealing the hood and returns it to the girl, who steps on his foot and walks away. Soon after, the baker comes across his wife in the middle of the forest and asks her what she is doing there. The woman replies that her husband had forgotten his scarf, and at that moment, the couple sees Jack walking down the road with his cow. Without wasting any time, the adults set out to capture him, and upon hearing the boy explain that he is going to the market to sell the animal, the woman decides to trick him. So that they can buy the cow, the baker's wife reveals that they can use some magic beans in exchange, and confused, Jack asks what those things are capable of doing. The couple then decides to lie, saying that those beans have a strong spell inside them, capable of defying human limits, and the boy ends up believing them. Now that they have one of the items, the couple walks away from the boy, and the baker scolds his wife for taking advantage of Jack's innocence. However, the woman is not intimidated by this, and says that she is only doing this so that they can have the family they have always dreamed of. Trying to explain his frustration, the man explains that since he discovered his family's history, he no longer feels ready to be a father, and is comforted by his wife, who asks him to continue. So, the baker asks his wife to stay safe at home with the cow while he goes off to find the rest of the items. Far away, a royal prince arrives at a tower to rescue the princess, but before he can get close, he encounters the witch appearing in front of him. At that moment, it is revealed that the baby the witch had stolen in the past was none other than Rapunzel, who had been imprisoned in a tower with no doors. However, Thanks to the princess's song, she managed to attract the prince's attention, and in order to rescue her, he decides to retreat to come up with a plan. Upon reaching the window, the witch presents her false daughter with some blackberries, and at the same time, Little Red Riding Hood arrives at her grandmother's house, where she notices that the door appears to be open. Confused, the young girl enters the house and comes face to face with none other than the big bad wolf, who is disguised in the old woman's clothes. Before she can react, the girl is attacked by the creature, and as soon as he hears the screams coming from the tree, the baker, who was walking nearby, approaches the scene. Realizing that the big bad wolf has fallen asleep after devouring those people, the man tries to grab the Red Hood, but upon hearing the screams coming from the creature's belly, he decides to rescue them with his knife. Outside, the girl's grandmother asks if he will help them with the beast's body, but the baker replies that he is not a hunter and walks away from them. Quickly, Little Red Riding Hood runs to thank the man, and as a reward for saving their lives, she gives him her hood. Excited, the baker runs towards his house, and far away, Jack receives a lecture from his mother, since he traded the only animal they had for measly beans. Trying to calm her down, the boy explains that those beans are magic, but the woman does not believe him, and after throwing them away, she takes the boy inside, saying that he is grounded. However, as soon as the beans touch the ground, a kind of spell is cast, and huge roots begin to emerge from the ground. At dusk, after the king's grand festival, Cinderella flees the castle after dancing with the prince, and during her escape, she encounters the baker's wife and asks her not to tell anyone. The young woman then runs to hide, and when she encounters members of the royal court, the woman lies, saying she didn't see anyone pass by. Believing the peasant woman's words, the group of guards continues their search of the area with the prince, and after leaving her hiding place, Cinderella thanks the woman for her help. As they say goodbye, the baker's wife sees the golden slipper on the young woman's foot and tries to get her attention, saying she will need one of them. However, Cinderella does not hear the woman, and before she can chase after her, the cow runs away. Realizing she has no choice, the baker's wife runs after the animal, and at that moment, the witch appears to warn her of the deadline of her agreement, as there are only 2 days left until her time runs out. The next day, Jack's mother wakes up with a plant touching her face, and when she goes outside, she comes across a huge beanstalk, hundreds of meters high. Minutes later, Jack runs into the middle of the forest to tell the baker what happened, and reveals that he got a bag of gold bars from the giants he met at the top of the beanstalk. Excited, the boy asks the man to return his cow, offering the gold as payment, but the man says that this will not be possible. Believing that the baker wants an even bigger payment, the boy runs to get more giant coins, and before he can stop him, the man comes face to face with his wife. Upon receiving the news that the cow has disappeared, the baker becomes enraged, and the couple begins to argue wildly. Outraged, the witch appears to interrupt the fight and orders the pair to get back to work. On the edge of the forest, Rapunzel's prince meets Cinderella's prince, and while the men talk, the baker's wife approaches them. Thanks to this, the woman manages to discover Rapunzel's location, where she can take the lock of golden hair. So, during the night, the baker's wife manages to approach the tower and trick the princess, allowing her to steal part of her hair, which is cut with a metal hook. Minutes later, the woman comes across Cinderella running away from the party once again and tries to hold her back to steal one of her shoes. However, the young cleaning lady is faster and manages to escape. At that moment, the prince appears alongside his guards, and after suggesting that the woman go home, he continues his search for Cinderella. Nearby, the baker continues his search for the remaining items, and when he takes a break to rest for a while, he realizes that he has just sat on the white cow, becoming extremely excited. Soon after, the man is surprised by his wife, and the couple celebrates when they realize that the only item left is Cinderella's golden shoe. Suddenly, Jack appears with a huge golden egg and explains that he stole it from a giant's hen so he could buy the cow back. Confused by what she is hearing, the woman asks why her husband agreed to sell the animal again, but the man tries to explain that this is not what happened. At that moment, the white cow falls to the ground, losing its energy, as it had been sick for some time. Putting his ear to the animal's heart, Jack realizes that his friend is no longer alive, and during the discussion, the couple hears the witch's voice, who says that they have only one more day to complete the mission. The next day, the evil sorceress finds the prince leaving his tower, where he visited Rapunzel, and after knocking him into a thorny bush, she sets out to punish the princess by cutting her long hair with scissors. In the middle of the forest, Jack comes across Little Red Riding Hood picking some flowers, and the young girl shows him her newest hood, made of wolfskin. Excited, the boy shows off the huge golden egg he stole from the giants and explains that these creatures possess incredible magical artifacts. In addition, Jack tells her about a golden harp he saw in that place, and reveals that the instrument was capable of playing music on its own, as if it had a consciousness. However, the young woman does not believe him, and to prove that he is telling the truth, the boy says he will steal it. The problem is that this time, one of the giants spots Jack, and after climbing down the beanstalk with his harp, the boy tries to cut the roots with an axe. Seconds later, the couple feels a strong earthquake, where the giant ends up falling and losing his life with the destruction of the beanstalk. That night, Cinderella escapes from the king's festival one last time, but what she didn't expect was that the prince had put tar on the castle stairs, causing her shoes to stick to the floor. The princess then decides to continue her escape, and while the prince picks up the golden shoe on the stairs, Cinderella is surprised by the baker's wife halfway down the stairs. The woman quickly tries to convince her to hand over the shoe, offering a magic bean in exchange. However, Cinderella does not accept the deal and throws the shoe away, causing it to disappear when it touches the ground. At that moment, the women hear the prince approaching with his cavalry, and to convince her, the baker's wife hands her peasant shoes. Believing that she will be able to run better with that pair, Cinderella gives her shoe to the woman and runs away. Soon after, one of the prince's knights captures the woman, but the prince says that they have already obtained one of the shoes, and that is enough to track down the princess. With all the items collected, the woman runs to meet her husband, without even noticing that a second beanstalk has begun to grow toward the sky. At home, Cinderella and the rest of the family receive a visit from the prince, and desperate for her daughters to become suitors for the heir to the throne, the stepmother decides to remove their toes so that they can fit into the golden shoe. However, the pain and discomfort prevent the mad women from deceiving the man, and at that moment, he sees the housekeeper approaching in the darkness. Without wasting any time, the prince puts the shoe on Cinderella's foot, and upon realizing that she is his princess, he decides to take her to live with him, while the young woman's crow friends take revenge on the stepmother and her daughters, who have their eyes removed. Far away, in the middle of a dark swamp, Rapunzel's prince, who ended up blind after falling into thorns, continues to search for his beloved, who sings in a small hut. Hearing the man's call, the princess cries out for him, and despite the eels scattered throughout the water, she decides to cross the river to reach him. As soon as they meet, the couple embraces, and devastated by what her false mother has done, Rapunzel begins to cry. Thanks to this, the princess's tears heal the prince's eyes, and he is moved to have his sight back. At the same time, the baker gathers the ingredients together with his wife, but when she notices that the cow they brought is not the same one, the witch becomes confused and asks what they are trying to do. The man then explains that the animal he bought from Jack ended up losing its life, and the sorceress orders them to take her to the body so she can resurrect it with her powers. Meanwhile, on the outskirts of the forest, Jack is found by his mother, who was extremely worried after coming across a giant lying in front of her house. Soon after, the witch appears before the couple and resurrects the cow, leaving everyone impressed. To complete the spell, the woman orders the group to make the animal devour all the ingredients, but at that moment, she notices that one of the items does not seem to be working. Realizing that the golden hair the couple picked up belonged to Rapunzel, the witch is disappointed, saying that they will not be able to perform the ritual. However, Jack remembers that the corn the baker is carrying has strands of hair in it, and they decide to use that as an ingredient. With that, the boy uses a chalice to collect the cow's milk after she digests everything, and without wasting any time, the witch consumes the potion just below the moon, beginning her transformation. While the evil sorceress's appearance changes, the baker's wife sees her belly growing, and the couple is excited to realize that they will finally be able to have a child. Days later, everyone's lives were resolved, as Jack and his mother began to live a life of luxury with the gold objects they managed to sell. In addition, Cinderella became the kingdom's newest princess, and the baker and his wife lived happily ever after with their little baby, born of a miracle. Finally, Rapunzel got her long-dreamed-of life as a princess back, alongside her prince, whose vision was fully restored by the healing power of her tears. However, during all that celebration, the kingdom feels a powerful tremor in the region, and believing that something bad is happening, the prince decides to investigate what happened. At the same time, the couple returns home, but on the way, they find Little Red Riding Hood lost in the forest. The young girl explains that her village has been completely devastated by the earthquake, and in order to help each other, they decide to travel as a group. Soon after, the stepmother appears with her daughters and the prince's guards, and with everyone together, the survivors try to understand what is happening. At that moment, a giant appears among the trees and orders the group to tell her where Jack is. Upon hearing that the monster is looking for her son, the boy's mother appears and yells at the creature, saying she will not allow it. Quickly, the woman is knocked out by one of the guards, who says that the boy ran towards the church. The monster then leaves in search of Jack, and after everyone has gone, Little Red Riding Hood remains with the boy's mother and the couple. Due to the impact she suffered, the woman does not survive her injuries, and before losing her strength, she asks the group to protect her son. Far away, the witch arrives at the tower to check if Rapunzel is okay, and despite being confused by the woman's rejuvenation, the princess says she will no longer stay with her. At that moment, the prince appears to search for her, and she leaves so that she no longer has to live with the woman who imprisoned her for so long. Meanwhile, the couple decides to split up to look for Jack, and asks Little Red Riding Hood to wait for them in that same place. In a few minutes, the baker finds Cinderella sitting in front of the tree on her mother's grave, which was destroyed during the earthquake. In order to stay safe, the survivors decide to walk together through the region, and nearby, the woman is surprised by the giant and runs away in despair. During her escape, the woman reaches a cliff, and before she can grab hold of one of the trees, she slips and falls off the precipice. At dusk, the baker becomes concerned about his wife's delay, and before he can leave to look for her, the witch appears alongside Jack. The sorceress says they need to deliver the boy to the giant as soon as possible, but the man stops her, saying they shouldn't do that. At that moment, Jack hands the scarf to the baker and reveals that he found his wife's body at the edge of the cliff. Realizing that he has just lost the love of his life to an attack by the giant monster, the man flies into a rage and blames the boy for what happened. This causes a fight to break out among the group, with the survivors blaming each other. Realizing that they have no chance of defeating this threat, and that even though she has been rejuvenated, her whole life has gone down the drain, the witch gives up on facing so many problems and walks to the center of the forest. Soon after, the sorceress begins a powerful ritual and is sucked underground, ending her life and creating a huge pit. After that, the baker tries to come up with a plan to defeat the giant, and Cinderella asks the birds for help in setting a trap for the creature. The princess then hides the couple's son, but suddenly, she is found by the prince and decides to reject him once and for all, as she does not want to live as a queen in a castle, but as a free person. Minutes later, Cinderella comforts Little Red Riding Hood for the loss of her mother and grandmother after the earthquake, and taking advantage of the situation, the baker tells Jack that his mother has passed away. This news makes the boy furious, but the man calms him down, saying that they will make sure that all those lost lives were not in vain. At that moment, the group hears the giant approaching and runs to their positions. Upon seeing the boy, the creature walks towards him, and as soon as the monster's feet are trapped by the pit created by the witch, Cinderella commands her birds to attack the giant's head, while Jack and the baker throw stones at her. This causes the creature to become unconscious and fall to the ground, knocking down the tree the pair was hanging from. Cinderella and Little Red Riding Hood quickly rescue Jack, and when they reunite with their group, the baker decides to invite them to live with him, so that they can all have a family again. Finally, the man sits on a log to calm his baby, and to help him sleep, he tells the story of a fearless baker couple who faced all kinds of dangers just to protect their son. So what did you think of this movie? Leave it in the comments below. And if you liked the video, like and subscribe for more movie recaps. See you next time.